What it do? E-World, crisscrossing wires. We out here today, rush hour. Almost 6 o'clock. No gloves. No big jacket. So yeah, very unprepared. I got my chest plate on. Well, at least got that on, but anyway. You know, I get the question a lot. People always ask me, you ever been stopped by the police? And I answered it on my in the comments. I said no, I ain't never been stopped, and no, I don't plan to be stopped, because I ain't gonna stop. So there you have it. That's my answer. Okay, I must be an eco, obviously. So let's get off of eco. And to do that, I gotta close out that, open GLE. See, I call it eco, but it's actually street on GLE. We want ludicrous. Street is, I mean, basically you can set those to whatever you want. I have street set at 8K. I have ludicrous set at 32.5. Now, even though I'm using kilowatt, GLE is still a foundation app. So if I have that set to a certain power rating or whatever, it will affect the kilowatt. Man, I love to have a little building just like that. That's all I need for my shop. I've been pricing them. They like 3-4 grand, but man, I figure I could build one for about $1,000. So you know how I do. And actually, I think I could build one for cheaper than that. Crouch down because I'm cold, not because I'm trying to speed or anything. It's cold. Shit. Damn, jacking on. And that's why I really ain't trying to go fast right now. I'm freezing. Sometimes it's nice just to see, you know, when they get the speed up with field weakening, you know, how many watts does it take to maintain a speed like 40 miles an hour, man? If you can maintain 40 miles an hour for 1,000 watts or 1,500 watts, that is pretty efficient. Talking about accelerating up there, because that takes power, but once you get there, to hold it. Okay, 47 miles an hour right now, 2,800 watts. I think that was pretty good, especially going uphill still. And it's close to 50 at 2,700 watts. Let's see, 2,000 watts, 2,200, and let's just hold it till we get to the top speed, 2,000 watts. 1,500. Now, it still is a kind of a hill. Ain't no doubt about it. It's definitely an incline. So it's going to take more power. Now this is a slight downgrade. 2,000 watts. And you guys can do this and let me know, like how many watts it takes you to hold like 40 miles an hour on level ground. Let's see, right now I'll say about 2,000 watts for 40 miles an hour. Just make it look good and pedal 33 miles an hour. Alright, so we're down to 81.5 volts. We're going 4.3 miles. And that's not really conserving too good because I've done this before and got like 10 miles using 2 volts. But let's see if it comes back up. 81.3 volts right now. And let's try not to use no extreme power and see if we can regenerate some watts and get some more watts back. Some of that voltage, battery voltage back. And basically we're going to be trying to do like normal e-bike speed, 30-40 miles an hour. That's a little above normal e-bike speed, but yeah. $3,500 amps. I mean, 3,500 watts. It's done dropped back down to 2,000 watts now. 25. It's fluctuating. That QS273, man. One thing about that motor, man, it has this positives and negatives from being heavy. Because as I said, man, that motor is 50 pounds. So when you get the RPMs up on that motor, the kinetic energy alone from the weight of that motor spinning, once you get it spinning, I mean, the weight, you know, that, like I said, that kinetic energy spinning will keep this bike coasting or having some momentum for a while. It would do it even longer if I didn't have, you know, the Regen on, which is pulling on it just a little bit, because I have my throttle off Regen set to like 3%, man, so it's really low. But if I'm going 30-40 miles an hour and get off the throttle, I'm producing 500-600 watts of Regen. If I hit the Ebrake at 30-40 miles an hour, I'm getting 1,500-2,000 watts worth of Regen. Look at that. All Regen. I need my rear view camera or some mirror so I can see what's behind me. I know police is back here. Pull over. I need to know what's in the background. Good to go. Back cold again. It's cold down on this end. Woo, shit. Damn, I wish I had my jacket on, man. I want to fly a little bit, but shit. That hawk is cutting through me. Look at that. Ooh. I'm paying attention, but I was looking at all that regen. So, yeah, that's it. Awesome thing, man. You guys don't sleep on this regen, man. Like I told you, watch this. On throttle, off throttle. It's 500 watts going back into my battery. I mean, it's like charging your bike, man. And it even says how many amps that is. Down to 1 amp now, but let's see, when I was at like 500 watts, I'll see how many amps that is a regen. Yeah, that's like 5 amps, like your 5 amp charger. And you figure like this, if you have regen enabled, off throttle regen. Now don't get it twisted. Let me clarify regenerative braking and just off throttle regen, because people get it confused. Now it's using the same system, just different extremes of it. And not only that, most e-bikes have regenerative braking, which is connected to their brake handles with your motor cut off. You know, when you squeeze your brake on most e-bikes, that cuts power to the motor. That's a safety feature. And then you can also use that to enable stuff like brake lights and all that, using that signal wire. But another thing that signal wire does on your brake, and I don't have one on this bike, but normally you would have your e-brake connected to your motor cutoff, which is your low brake. And what that will do is, when you have your e-brake set, let's say you have your e-brake power set to 30%, or that may be like 30 amps. I'm just guessing. It could be anything, whatever you set it to. So when you have that type of e-braking, when you squeeze your brakes just a little bit, all you're doing when you activate your e-brake, whatever you have that percentage set to, it's that all the time. If you have it set to 30%, every time you squeeze your brake, you're getting 30% worth of e-brake. Now, I have a variable e-brake, which is, see, like this thumb throttle right there? And that gives me a variable e-brake, meaning the more pressure I apply, the more e-brake applies, just like, you know, squeezing the brake handle. So you have more control over your e-brake like that. So that's a good thing. Now, regenerative, just regen, off throttle regen, is every time. Right now I'm actually giving it some throttle, not much, but I'm giving it throttle. But when I'm not giving it throttle, it starts off throttle regen, which is set to like 3%. I have it set really low, so it doesn't affect my coasting ability. And when I get off the throttle, it doesn't bog me down like feeling like an e-brake. Now you can set that percentage as high as you want it to. A lot of people like to set that a little higher, so your bike feels like you know, a petrol bike with a clutch, you know, like on a dirt bike. When you get off the throttle, because you have a chain transmission and everything, it bogs you down. Anyway, having it set just very lightly, like I said, still gives me great coasting ability, but also gives me just enough of charge back into my battery. Now, like I said, the faster I go, the more that 3% is, as far as how many watts is putting back. But roughly around 30-40 miles an hour will give me about 500 watts of regen. Okay, now, like I was saying before, that is like having your charger hooked up, and every time you're not on the throttle, your charger turns on, pretty much. Because 500 watts is about 5 amps, same as your plug-in-the-wall charger. So although you'll never put back as much regen as you've used on your throttle, as much energy as you burn, you'll never regen as much as you burn, because it takes a lot more energy to propel you. But just to have something going back as opposed to nothing, I mean, think about that. Like I said, every time I'm not on the throttle, look at that, 250 watts 250 watts going back into my battery. So that's like 50%. I mean, you could average it like that. When you're out riding, you're not always on the throttle. So let's say you're on the throttle 50% of the time, off the throttle 50% of the time. You could say 50% of the time you're charging. So you definitely have to get longer range than the guy that doesn't have any regen at all off throttle. Imagine, he's riding around, when he's coasting, he ain't making it no power. You know, he's not putting anything back in your battery, in his battery. But if you guys are riding together, you have to get better range than him, because every time you guys are coasting, you're charging your battery like I am now. Now, like I said, now you notice the difference in the amount of power recharging from off throttle regen and e-brake. All right, watch this. On the throttle, off the throttle, 400, 360 watts. Now watch it hit the e-brake. Watch how much it goes up. 2,000 watts initially, when I was still had some momentum. Because it's slowing me down quickly, because it's a brake, it's not going to stay at 2,000. But the faster I go and the more pressure I apply to this thumb throttle, the more e-brake. 2,500 watts, that's a lot. And let me look at the amps for something like that. 2,500 watts, that's a lot of amps going back. But let's see. Okay, I saw like 40 amps one time. So that's like charging at 40 amps. Now, though it's only for a couple of seconds, because you're not on the brake long, but you figure if you're cruising, you get off the throttle, you're already charging back anywhere from 250 to 500 watts. Then when you get ready to brake and stop, then you're charging like 2,500 watts. So you go from anywhere to 3 to 5 amps charging up to 30, 40 amps charging. Now that has to be a significant increase in you know, your range, putting power back. That's what makes Teslas and all those you know, electric cars so good, as far as you know, using that for their braking system and all that. I mean, that's helping with range, and it's putting that power to use, putting that energy to use, is stopping you for one. So man, you just can't beat that. Now imagine, let's just say you were out far away on a group ride or something, and your battery died, and you know, your buddy, he's getting ready to go home. You could put a tow rope on your bike and tie it to his petrol vehicle, and he could pull you for a couple miles, and you would literally be charging your bike as he's pulling you. Now imagine if while he's pulling me, I'm applying my variable e-brake. I'm not applying it fully because I don't want to lock my back wheel up, but I'm applying it so as though I'm charging at about 1,500 watts, 20, 30 amps. You know, he could pull me about 5 miles, and I'm sure in that time I could charge my battery up enough to make it home. You know what I mean? Depending on how far he pulled me, I could damn near charge my bike completely back up. Now you don't want to charge well, I mean, you could, because 40 amps still is not fast charging when you got a big old pack, especially if these big cells can handle 10 amps charging a piece. Like I tell people, they think that they feel like when they have a 10 amp charger or 15 amp charger, they're fast charging. Yeah, you're fast charging if you have a small pack that's about 15 amp hour, 20 amp hour. But if you got a big old 60 amp hour pack and you got a 12p or 15, 14p battery, think about it, those cells can be charged at 10 amps max, and you got 14 of them in parallel. That's 100. You could charge at 140 amps, and that would be fast charging then. But charging at 10 amps ain't fast charging, because you got 12p. You divide that 10 amps by 12 cells, and that's less, you know, that's less than an amp per cell. You're not fast charging. Anyway, so I guess this talk ended up being about regen and your battery. And reason why I'm kind of on this topic today. Now, I don't know if the guy said this as a joke in a good way, because it could have been a good way and he was joking, or it could have still been being sarcastic with some hatery, because the guy was like, you never talk about your range. I guess it's not good. So that doesn't sound good, but anyway. But I mean, most people would assume it's not good, especially if you're riding around 20, 30,000 watts. People know that the faster and harder you ride, normally the more it eats your battery. However, if you got a big battery, for one, it's not hurting you as bad. You got a 60 amp hour, and not only that, for a bike like mine, which I always tell you guys how efficient I believe it is, or I know it is, you know, with my impedance matching and all that. And I just was telling you about the Regen and the e-brake. So yeah, even going as fast as I go, I think I get great range. Now, I told him, no, I haven't done a range test because I just made this pack in the wintertime, and I'm not about to do a straight up range test all at one time that may take me 4, 5, 6 hours. It's too cold to ride all that time. So I did a cumulative range test as I you know, charged it up fully, and then rode a little bit every day, and just didn't charge my bike, and just added up how many miles I did every day when I came out without charging. And I think I did that for about a week and got my battery down to about 40%. And I think I had gotten like 120 miles for that 60%. 120 miles, which is great. And we're talking 120 miles with the way I ride. So you know, it's not like I'm going 20 miles an hour. That was 120 miles ripping and running. So I'm figuring I can get anywhere from 150 to 200 miles of range using the power that I'm using, which I think is great, because I hear them talk about the range on those motorcycles and those bikes like that, and it's not all that great. So I don't know, but you know, like I said, efficiency and regen is gonna do wonders. Now, I watched a couple videos on the motorcycle, and what I don't like about a lot of those new bikes, I don't know what kind of controllers they're using, but I noticed when they put it in high power mode, they can only put it in high power mode for like 2 minutes, and then it throttles down, and it can throttle down while you're on the highway. So you can go, you're going 70 miles an hour, and it'll throttle down to 45 on you unknowingly. So yeah, I don't like that. Now I can tell you this 8000 doesn't throttle down. You know, I'm pretty sure in the summertime I wouldn't want to be going 80 miles an hour for an hour straight. I mean, I definitely would want to get this thing some cool down periods, but man, 2 minutes, wow. But see, that's the stuff you have to deal with, and the protections that they put on systems like that. When, as I tell you about my racing packs, because I have made those to be capable of producing a lot of current, meaning I have copper in there, copper strips that are 20 millimeters wide, 0.2 millimeters thick, and can handle a lot more current flow. The reason why a lot of those batteries, even though they have a big battery as far as how many P and the amp hour, if they're welding using nickel strips, and they're manufacturing a lot of batteries, so they're trying to make them as fast as possible and as cheap as possible. Those, even that motorcycle has a 4 kilowatt hour battery in it, but I guarantee you, if I was to open that battery up, it probably has really good cells, probably molar cells, but how it's constructed, it probably just has one single strip of nickel, probably a decent thick strip of nickel, but still one. And that one strip of nickel is probably can only handle maybe 60-80 amps tops, continuous peak, you know, maybe a little more than that. But that is the reason why they have those bikes they throttle back after so many minutes, because if you only have a single nickel strip in that battery and you're pulling high current for a period of time, you're going to be toasting, melting those nickel strips like they're fuses. That nickel will melt. So that is why they can't pull a lot of current for long periods. The battery can't handle that, for one, and probably the controller. But most likely it's more the battery, I'm sure, is why they had that safety feature on there, because they don't want their battery to go into thermal runaway. And that's another reason too. Now, just because, now on the flip side of my batteries, although they can handle producing a lot of current, you still don't want to be pulling a lot of current for long periods of time, like I said, because all batteries are going to get hot if you're pulling high current on them for long periods of time. Now, those cells are capable of 45 amps per cell. So when you're talking 200-300 amps or 200 amps, just like I showed you, to maintain a high speed, it doesn't take a lot of amps to maintain 60-70 miles an hour. Once you get there, you're talking maybe 100-150 amps, if that. So you divide that up by a 14P battery, and that's like maybe 10-15 amps per cell, if that. So that's not really putting a huge demand on those cells. But you know, imagine if you were pulling the max on them, 45 amps, those cells would get hot, super hot, real fast. But anyway, it's a lot of variables to it. But still, I really don't like the idea that I'm only limited to that high speed for 2 minutes. Although I understand the safety aspect. They surely don't want you on a highway flying for 10-20 minutes, and you know, next thing you know, your battery's smoking and on fire. But I'm never going to abuse my battery like that for no long periods of time. And not only that, I'm working on a fan induction system, pulling and pushing air through my frame to help keep this battery cool in the summertime. Right now it's cool with winter, you know, kind of winter time, so you know, the battery's not overheating. But imagine in the summertime when it's 95 degrees and it's closed up in there. Of course, even an efficient battery with impedance matching is still going to get warm. But if you got a system that is getting hot right now in the wintertime because your stuff isn't, you know, matched up properly in the summertime, you're gonna have some problems, bro. You better work on that. Another thing I keep hearing about now, yeah, I guess you would be more concerned about that if you're running a 205, but there's a lot of guys I see that say they put ferro fluid and heat sinks on their motor, hub sinks, but a lot of them don't even need it, man. And you running 6,000 or 7,000 watts, there's no way your motor should be overheating. Now, a 205 should be able to run 8,000 to 10,000 watts comfortably. And where it gets into that point of where you may be pushing it too hard is when you're talking about 17,000, 18,000 watts, which they can do, but they will get warm at that point. And like I told you, because of its form factor, it can't dissipate the heat as good as a larger motor, physically, like mine. Now, okay, as far as the ferro fluid and the hub sinks. Now the hub sinks can't hurt you. You can put those on, and I mean, that's going to be a good thing, having some extra aluminum on there to help dissipate that heat. But that ferro fluid can help you and hurt you if you don't know what you're doing. If you put too much ferro fluid in your motor, that will cause friction and you know, put some drag on your motor. You know, you got too much in there, and it's like people used to fill their motors full of oil to try to keep them cool, and it worked. However, it put a lot of drag on your motor. You know, it's sloshing through all that oil. Same thing with the statorate. You put too much statorate in there, it's going to give you a lot of resistance, and that's going to hurt, you know, the efficiency of your motor. So you only need a small amount of it to just put a little thin layer. There's a little air gap in between your stator and the magnets that go around your hub, and that little air gap is what you want to bridge, so the heat can transfer from the stator to the case, the hub case. And with that ferro fluid, it's magnetic fluid, which is why it tends to stay in place in between the stator and your magnets on your hub. But like I said, it's like maybe a millimeter air gap, so that doesn't take a lot of statorate. But you get somebody that think more is better, put a whole bottle of ferro fluid in their motor, and they've made a problem that they didn't have. All right, well, that is our little discussion for this evening. Let's take a ride down and come back up. Man, I hate when it's muddy back here and wet. Sorry, bike just can't go in the house, that's all. Oh man, see? Fucking mud. I gotta be real careful with.